Hi, and welcome back to another Rage Badger Gaming video, going over the Frosthaven characters. Last but not least, we're doing the Deathwalker, as you can tell by my awesome cosplay.
Yeah.
Alright, let's get into it.
So shadow tokens ends up being core to how you play her. If you have no tokens in play, you're going to do your best to get more in play, and although there are ways to get a lot in play, it's very difficult, or you're capped at 5, which is fine. Usually you won't have that many out anyway.
Alright, let's get into the cards. First card is a persistent loss, but every time you kill an enemy, you get to place a shadow where that enemy just died.
You're stealing their shadows from them. And normally I'd say, this is amazing.
Normally.
Well, yeah, first off, it is amazing. The problem is, you might want to time it differently because of its bottom half.
Well, yeah, the bottom half. Also, get shadows.
Yep. And these are that bottom half is the only non-loss shadow generator in her whole cards until you level up. And it's a bit difficult to kill enemies when you don't have these tokens in play in the first place.
Catch-22 situation.
So you're going to have to prioritize when you want to put the persistent loss in play, because if you have a bunch of tokens in play, you can start burning them. And if you can start burning them, you can use them for more cool effects, and you can constantly actually regenerating them if you're killing enemies. The problem is you lose that really reliable shadow generator on the bottom then, so yeah, catch-22. Time it right or you might end up hindering yourself for the rest of the scenario.
Next card is Anger of the Dead. It's a pretty basic attack 2 within 2, yeah. But if you have a shadow within 2, you can basically sacrifice it to improve your attack.
Yeah, the cool part is there's actually no limit to it, so you can ramp it up all the way. And you get an experience for every shadow token you burn. And I'm kind of thinking the Deathwalker doesn't really have a lot of experience. You basically have to kill your shadow tokens, and there's only a couple other ways to really generate experience. So unless you can find ways to get a lot of shadow tokens in play, maybe get a little creative, you might be lagging behind others in EXP. So, but this one is, every shadow token you burn, you get an experience and the range and the attack. The attack goes up by 2, so just burning 1 shadow token turns into an attack 4. And the initiative's great on this too.
Yeah. Something we didn't touch on is that shadows can occupy another hex that someone is already occupying. The bottom half of this card gives you a wound to an enemy.
All enemies.
If they're occupying same hex as a shadow.
And then for the rest of the turn, any enemies that move through your shadows also get wounded. So you can get creative and play with some of those pulls and pushes, and she does have at least one, or even make him force them to funnel through those to get wounded to get closer to you.
Next is Restless Souls, and this is pretty nice if you can swarm all your shadows into melee, because anything adjacent to them will just suffer 1 damage.
Pretty basic. I think I like the bottom half a little bit more, but the top half is absolutely useful, especially if you're fighting things with shield.
Bottom half of this card is just a little bit of movement for your shadows.
Yeah, and since it affects all of them and shadows don't operate like a summon, they're going to stay in place until you move them.
Next is Fluid Night. And this is an attack 4, pretty nice. And you're effectively attacking with your shadow. So you don't even need to be in the same room, essentially.
Yeah, just have an enemy right next to a shadow, attack from it. And since you are burning the shadow in the process, you do get an experience. So again, constantly create those shadows so you can get the experience for this. That said, an attack 4 that empowers an element with a long range, potentially infinite range. You just have to attack as if you're adjacent there. So
you do lose the shadow, but worthwhile sacrifice.
Yeah, if you call to the abyss, you can always just create more. The whole point is keeping them in place or keeping them at least summoned where you've got a few in play.
Bottom half is a nice teleport if an enemy is attacking you and you sacrifice the shadow and you don't take the damage.
Yeah, and sometimes you get hit and you say, crap, I need to lose a card. This effectively is a preemptive way to get out of jail free. You get an experience because you burn the shadow, teleport to it, and in the process, take nothing. I think that's got some value.
I guess you have to be clairvoyant.
Yeah, that's one of my problems with it is you have to expect a big hit because you're like, I'm about to take 1 damage. You're like, that's not worth destroying one of my shadow tokens for. So I'd say it's a bit situational. It's a very powerful effect, but you just have to know it's coming.
Next is Sunless Separation, and you can take your shadow token and turn it into Shadow Beast, and you can do this over and over because it's not a loss.
Yep, just need a shadow token. Gain an experience by turning it into a little evil cat that runs at enemies. Very fast too, so the 3 speed usually means it'll get to the enemy, and it'll probably take a hit in the process, which is one of the good parts of summons. And unlike the Necromancer summons, you don't lose life, so it's a free shot.
Bottom half of this card can be a really big movement if your shadow is placed ahead of you.
Yeah, especially because you can manipulate and do a lot of things from your shadows. You can push them ahead and then just burn this to teleport to the shadow. And of course, if there is a lot of coins or loot in Frosthaven around that, you can destroy the shadow, gain an experience, and loot everything that was adjacent to that shadow.
Next is Eclipse. You create 2 shadows within 3 hexes of you, empower dark, and get 1 experience.
Amazing. Don't need to really explain it. It's very good.
Yeah, too bad it's lost though.
Yeah. Still gives you experience. Empowers dark, which sets up a nice next turn. And
There are lots of ways to empower dark though.
Yeah. But why not do it on the turn you're going to be creating a lot of shadows too? So there's a lot of value.
Sure.
There. Yeah.
We need more shadows.
There's not enough.
And yeah, the bottom half, it's your standard movement, but you empower dark, which you will need.
Also good.
Next is Call of Doom, which is a melee attack, but you can do it from your shadow, and you can empower it with dark and muddle your adjacent enemies.
Yeah, everything around it gets attacked. The cool part is it does leave the shadow intact in the process of attacking this. So, although you do only do attack 2, it's a big area. You just have to have your shadow positioned correctly.
And then the bottom is just move 3. So, yeah.
And it's got a decent initiative too.
Next is Black Barrage, and this is okay attack, range 4, but you can beef it up with dark.
Yeah, an attack 3 at range 4 is pretty solid. You have plenty of ways to power dark, so it's going to be reliably be an attack 3. And this is also good because if you do need to move or have a turn where you've got not too many shadow tokens in the right spot, at the very least, this is completely independent of them and allows you to maybe use it when you've got the top half of Call to the Abyss up. If you can finish off an enemy, you can use it without needing a shadow token. And if you kill him with this attack, it'll drop them in their spot.
And then the bottom half, really nice move 5 for your shadow.
Yeah. Only 1 shadow, but 5 hexes. That's huge.
Next is Strength of the Abyss, and this just is maximum attack 5 because you can only have 5 shadow tokens.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the value of it is so incredible because you actually have to position yourself to get in place. And the 50 initiative is hard to commit to going early or late. However, I do think that if you do build it to where you have a lot of these tokens in play, you can reliably get a good melee attack with this card.
Bottom half of this card is sacrifice a shadow and then buff your attack or move, and this is persistent.
Yeah, so anytime you kill a shadow this way, you get an experience, thankfully. And turning some of your slow moves into +2 can really... I mean, it's very versatile. As long as there's shadow tokens on the board, you're like, if only. I know it burns a shadow token, but I do think the strength in that Sometimes you just need like, my boots are tapped, I need to move further, or my eagle eye goggles, can I get some extra attack in? If you have a shadow, you can say, I'm removing it and I'm putting it into this action. And that kind of versatility can really, really step the Deathwalker's viability up.
Next is Shadow Step. And this is a move 3, but you have to end in the same hex as a shadow, and then you do a melee attack too.
It is a nice move and attack both in a top slot. So if you are out of position and need to use one of those, there's plenty of bottom halves for the Deathwalker that actually do not move you at all. So having a top half that gets you into spot is potentially useful. You have to end it in a shadow, and that's fine because you'll probably have a few out. So I think there's value in it. I'm not immediately feeling this card, though.
Bottom half of this card is a loss. You place a shadow, and then book it out of there, move 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that it creates a shadow, but it's a shadow generator as a loss, whereas Eclipse creates 2 and gives you an experience. This gives you a move. I mean, I just think there are better cards in the Deathwalker's arsenal.
Yeah. Next is Lingering Rot. This is a nice poison to adjacent enemies, and it's a good attack 4.
Yeah.
It is a loss, and you can attack via your shadow.
Yeah, you basically blow up a shadow and do a very high-powered attack, everything next to it. And regardless of what you draw, everything's poisoned, and you get 2 experience for blowing up that shadow. Given that you see the value of limited attack losses like Net Shooter from the Tinkerer as attack 4, and some of the more versatile ones like Fire Ups at attack 3, the fact that this limits you to a small area but still attack 4 and inflicts poison, I think puts it just slightly ahead of the curve, but only because it's got this very specific shadow requirement and enemy positioning requirement.
In the bottom half, move 2, poison an adjacent enemy.
Solid.
I like poisons.
It's one of the best ways to improve damage on an enemy, especially against those annoying shielded guys.
Next is Rest in the Shade, and this is a heal for yourself and your allies if they're standing in a shadow.
Yeah, quite literally thematic with the name. Rest in the shade. Get the nice chillax as long as you're in the shadows. And power's dark too. Extra shadowy. I think this one has some good value, especially although the Deathwalker's got a low health pool. She can afford to lose some cards because of her giant hand size. That's why we're just getting into the X cards. But the ability to heal, you're probably going to have your shadows up towards the front line if you can move them. So it's possible that whoever's taking your hits, probably a Banner Spear or a Drifter, might be on a shadow. And you can give them a little bit of support healing this way.
Bottom half of this card is quite impressive. Move all of your shadows 5 hexes and get an experience.
Yeah. I can see this being... It's one of those where the top half is pretty nice. Healing's never something you want to turn down. And a reliable dark generator is very good.
Yeah.
Then the bottom half, if you're in a big room and you know that you need to burn something, move everything in a spot with a nice bottom half to set up one of the very powerful top halves. Can otherwise change a room and you do need to have a shadow in position. So I like the way they tune that though. So I think this one will find its way into a lot of the hands.
Next is Forceful Spirits. And this, if you empower dark, is an attack 3, range 2, target 2 things, and you push it 1. Sometimes
you'll have positioned them, wounded the enemies you want to, then they move forward, and you can actually end up knocking some in there. So there is some potential with the movement here. I do think the multi-attack 3 is probably the better, is what you're going to be looking at the most.
It's not multi-attack, it's just 2.
2's multi.
Oh my god. Alright. Comment below. Is 2 a multiple?
Side with me.
Bottom half, I think, is really good to get yourself moving. Teleport to a hex with a shadow or adjacent to a shadow.
Anywhere on the board. As long as there's a shadow next to it or on it, you're there. Bam!
Yeah, especially if there's like obstacles and traps and things.
Yeah, so that, and given there's a lot more like move 1 shadow 5, I've noticed that at least when we actually started doing some of the scenarios online, we noticed that moving shadows ahead was a typical strategy, and you can just move yourself over, like, I'm ready for the next room. Given your shadows are already moved there, and then you just teleport to them, I think this is basically going to end up being a mandatory card.
Yeah, top and bottom half I like very much. Next is Wave of Anguish. And this can be insane if you have 5 shadow tokens.
This might be the highest potential damage level 1 loss.
Yes.
So the funny part is you see a lot of things like the Cragheart's Rock Slide and a few others that say there's any hexes they're next to, they only get hit once. There's no asterisk here. If you have all your shadows surrounding an enemy, you can attack them as many times, but only 1 attack per shadow. So the cool part is you can make 5 attack 3s if you've set this up correctly, and you can slap them all up on that boss if you really want to. So,
and you can attack as if you were the shadow. You don't need to be in there yourself.
Yeah, you stay nice a little bit away. And the funny part is none of these shadows get burnt in the process. They're left intact.
Bottom half is regular movement, but then you can move your shadows, all of your shadows, up to 1 hex.
I think this is another one of those where if you've got a very powerful top, you need a usable bottom. Mm-hmm. The move 2 isn't terribly impressive, but the ability to hoof your Deathwalker in the direction you want and then do little adjustments on up all of your shadow tokens, I think is more than sufficient to justify this card as at least playable. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got a good one here.
Yeah, these are really impressive X's.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get some like conditional X's where like, wow, in this case I might use it, but I think all these seem to, I think I'm going to play all the X's if I ever were to play a Deathwalker.
Yeah, good luck choosing your hand.
Yeah, at least you do get to pick 12 cards out of the massive 15 you get though.
All right, so that's all the starter cards. So if that's all you're here to look at, hit that like button and subscribe, and we're going to carry on to level 2.
But wait, there's more. Skip ahead with the description below. We will be looking at the perks for the Deathwalker and a couple of enhancement opportunities.
All right, level 2 card. First up, Dark Fog. It's a loss. 3 hex.
For the top, though.
We always start at the top, Brett. I think they know I'm starting at the top.
Okay, that's fair. Attack 2.
Curse.
Range 3.
Experience.
It's good. I think this is where Isaac said in an interview that they're going to kind of increase the cost of curses. So a lot of the Gloomhaven classes may find that curses are a little bit easier for them to get. So I don't think they put that kind of cost on a Gloomhaven class, but in Frosthaven we're clearly seeing that curse is a little bit more valuable. That said, it's still a nice multi-attack that throws in up to 3 curses into the enemy deck. It's really hard to complain. I don't think it's incredible, but I do think the bottom half ends up making it worth it anyway.
Yeah, bottom half, move 1 shadow token up to 4.
It can blow up in an enemy's face. Yeah.
Suffers 3 damage. Wow.
Yeah. Especially on low levels. If you're level 2 here, you can actually end up killing some very annoying enemies with this, like normal fire demons. Even if you've leveled up to level 2 dungeons, this will take them out in one shot. All you lose is the shadow token, and you get an experience from the process. So there's a few other things like Vermling Shamans that also this is incredibly effective against.
Next, level 2 card, Deepening Despair. And this is an attack 5 at any range. Although it has to be adjacent to 2 shadows. Yeah.
So it's one of those extra asterisk for a good effect. So it does empower dark though. So attack 5, non-loss, empower dark.
11 initiative too.
Oh yeah. Great initiative. So you're probably going early. Especially if you set up your shadow tokens in the previous round and you don't want to lose that the enemy goes early. That 11 initiative will end up saving it in the long run. Thanks.
Bottom half of this card, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so like if you have a shadow token here and you have an ally over here, you can move across from that shadow token to the other. Any ally can do it for the whole round, which makes it incredibly powerful. So the problem is it only lasts for one round and it is a loss. So you better set it up. There are a few scenarios where I swear if you know how the scenario is supposed to go going in, you could probably run this at max level 7 and then use the Deathwalker's movement, open up some doors, get in across and move out from just one loss and just win the scenario without actually even needing to fight most of the enemies. I know there's a couple scenarios if you've gone deep through the Gloomhaven campaign where you think like, oh crap, in these ones, it's an instant win. And it is that easy. So with a really powerful but conditional top half, but another conditional bottom, it does make me wonder how often, because they're both conditional, but I think they're both good. And I do think the good initiative and the top half isn't conditional enough to turn me off of it. I think it's a good mix between those two level 2 cards.
Mm-hmm. All right, level 3, Deadbolt. Pretty nice. Burn that dark to curse an enemy. Range 4, attack 3.
Yeah, it's good. Mm-hmm. Damage and curses, no loss, no shadow token reliance.
Bottom half, move those shadows, all of the shadows. 3 hexes.
Non-loss, move them all 3.
Second level 3, Ritual Sacrifice.
Sacrifice!
Sacrifice!
Sacrifice! Sacrifice! Alright, that's a bit too much there. So this one's a pretty powerful top half attack, but it's melee and you have low health pool.
Yeah, it could be attack 5 if it's adjacent or in the same hex as a shadow.
Yeah, 4 each though, so if you slap a bunch of shadow tokens around them, you could get this up to a non-loss attack 9. Yeah, that's really hard to do, but it's really hard to do, and it's a melee. I still think it's got viability. The problem is...
Yeah, it's a melee, and you can't do it through a shadow.
It is competing with Deadbolt, too, so...
Deadbolt's nice.
Deadbolt's nice.
The bottom half of this card, I don't care for. I don't want to sacrifice my shadows for a temporary shield. Experience, that's nice, but at the cost of your shadows.
Yeah, the economy of shadows, although you can burn any number here, which is nice. So you could burn them all, get a big lot of experience. You can burn them slowly if you really want the experience from other cards at the same rate. There's no burn 1 shadow for extra experience except for Lingering Rot, which gives you 2 experience for killing your 1 shadow. It is a loss though, so I just don't see it as a... I mean, it's got some scenarios where you're gonna say, oh, this is great, but I think it's too conditional, and I don't like losing it for a 1-turn shield.
Level 4 cards, and the first one is Fleeting Dust.
Darkfire!
And it's a weaker attack, but you wound, and the wound is applied to anything adjacent or in the same hex as your shadow.
Yeah, you get to blow up the whole map. Anything on a hex, anything adjacent to those shadows, all of it gets wounded, and you get to attack 2 on everything. That's a loss, but that much wound, if you've got them in the right spots, that's a lot of wounding. That's set the map on fire.
It's just a flesh wound.
It's a lot of flesh wounds though. Ultimately, good value, and doesn't blow up any of the shadows.
Bottom half is really nice because it creates a shadow.
Ta-da! Non-loss shadow token generator. It's called the Abyss's best friend, or second best friend. It's actually worse because this has to be adjacent. The other one gives you range. The initiative's better, but who cares if you're just creating shadow tokens?
And final card, pulled across, and it's a Bane.
Bane,
which is new.
A new status effect. Anytime an enemy or a friendly ends up ending their turn with Bane, it gets removed, and you suffer 10 damage. Not attack, suffer. Ignores all shields. That can kill a lot of things. Some of the stuff in OG Gloomhaven was like, do this, but only if they're normal or blah. This actually doesn't even have a restriction. You can put this on bosses. So that's incredible. And I love the pulled across. It's like it's pulling them into the Shadow Realm. It's just, you're sending them to the Shadow Realm. 10 damage. It kills that shadow for 2 experience. Good trade-off. And probably is just going to kill whatever it is. And if it's a boss, probably not killing it, but you're doing a lot of damage. Worth a loss, in my opinion.
Yeah, really nice for those bosses with shields.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of really good uses for this.
Bottom half I like as well, because
does everything you want.
Invisible is sweet.
Yeah.
Empower that dark. It's reusable.
Yeah. Reusable, move, invisible, empowered. I mean, that's...
This seems like a little overpowered.
Yeah, and it's so annoying. It's sharing a tear with Fleeting Dusk, so it really leaves it to, do you want that really good bottom half that you're always going to want? You're going to move, turn invisible, empower dark. And what top half loss? I mean, obviously, I think if I were to pick a top half, I'd pick the Bane one. I love the blow up a whole room and wound everything, but the idea of those really annoying opponents were like, oh my goodness, why do you have Shield 5? Who invented Shield 5? Isaac, but just saying, all right, ready? At the end of your turn, you're just gone. You're dead. That's great, especially with that bottom half. However, it does mean you do lose that Shadow Generator. So we may look at the level 5 cards and want to take... I want to see how compelling are they that I don't want to take both of these. But for right now, those options are hidden.
All right, that does it for the cards, and we're going to move on to the Deathwalker perks.
Yeah, and this is incredible because I'm a big fan of getting Slim for your attack modifier deck. So the cool part is you can almost get rid of all your -1s. You can if you leave that pesky -2 in. So I'm always a big fan. And the funny part is one of them is built into the ignore those really annoying scenario effects. So you ignore a scenario effect, remove a -1. Fantastic. You can thin all the -1s out of the deck or thin all of them and replace that -2 with a -1. Leaving to where your only negative cards in your deck is that -1 and that miss, which is fantastic. This doesn't have the super thinning remove 4 zeros though, so that's a little bit of the trade-off, but you can really make a pretty powerful deck with this one. I'm not a big fan of some of the chains here. Adding chain and wound, I mean that's generally fine. They're a little bit not predictable, and I think that adding the push isn't necessary. But the cool part is adding more +2s are great, but they're not just +2s. They're +2 and empowered dark, so you can fill your deck with 3 +2s, and 2 of them empower your favorite elements. I'd say the Deathwalker has some of the best perks as a result of this. Go for those battle goals. Make sure you get as many of these as possible because they will be one of the better ways to improve your damage output. Items. So we actually got our hands on some of the Frosthaven items, and you're going to want to go towards, in my opinion, alchemy. Now, there's way more potions in Frosthaven than Gloomhaven, and there's some randomness to it, and we are going to spoil literally nothing. However, some of your favorites will return, and I think this is one of those where the stamina potion is even more critical to this, especially for Call to the Abyss. What's better than creating a shadow? Do it again, and you can actually start the scenario significantly ahead of the curve. Now, you have to discover them first, and we're never going to tell you how to do that. However, there is also a handful of items. I do think the Deathwalker doesn't necessarily need mobility, but there's other things like the Spyglass, which can give you advantage for 1 attack, which is largely a worse version of Eagle Eye Goggles, but it's way cheaper and easier to craft. The annoying part is a lot of the Deathwalker's attacks end up being like, attack this many times, so Eagle Eye wouldn't even buff the whole attack action anyway, since they're all separate actions. Mm-hmm. So just buffing 1 attack may end up being better anyway. So And I don't necessarily think the Deathwalker is really hurting for more dark generation, so you might be able to use some of your other slots in gold for better purposes. I'd say more enhancements, but I'm generally unimpressed with the pips she has.
And now we're going to get into the enhancements. And there aren't that many options to choose from, but we'll talk about a few options.
I think it's funny that the Spellweaver has 11 cards to start off, and some of her cards has 4 pips on just 1 card. The Deathwalker has 15 level 1 cards, and there are 8 pips total amongst all of 15 combined.
One of the cards we would consider enhancing is Call of Doom. You could improve that attack to 3, or you can improve that move to 4.
Or both. Since it does attack all adjacent enemies, that provides a lot of value, and it's a non-loss. So I think you're going to see a bigger payoff there. And if you're not, because some scenarios just aren't so enemy dense, you're going to probably be moving a lot. And I don't think it's a card that's going to leave your hand terribly often. So buffing that to a move 4 may end up being valuable. And since they're on both sides of the card, it doesn't end up making it cost anymore. So you can buff both for relatively cheap.
Okay, card number 2, we're going to talk about Lingering Rot. Same dealio. Improve that attack or the move.
The move's good because you have to poison an adjacent enemy. So it's really annoying when you can only move 2 and they're just out of range. So moving 3 and then being able to poison 1 adds a lot of value. And I know that that's a top half loss, but that's a big boom. So if you want to add something to it, this is probably one of the better cards. I think I'm still favoring Call of Doom for the attack, since you're probably going to get the payoff more than once a scenario. This one's still one of your biggest attacks, so that extra punch just might be worth it. Forceful Spirits. Psyche. This is the best card that could have had any number of pips to. Improve the attack, amazing. Improve the range, valuable. Add another target, amazing. 0 pips to be found, I'm just really pissed. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, it's already awesome.
I know, but it could be amazing.
They didn't want you to make it...
Yeah! And if you're like, well, there's not many pips on the level 1 cards. Certainly the advanced cards have more pips. On levels 2 through 4, 1 single pip. On that stab where you hit hard and then extra for every shadow token next to him. I mean, Ritual Sacrifice. I mean, it's good. I think it's a great card. It competes with Deadbolt. It's good, but it's expensive because it's a lot. Jeez, I really hope they add more pips in the process of releasing this to in 2021, because I kind of feel like the Deathwalker's options really need to be expanded. But hey, that's just my take on it.
All right, tell us your thoughts on this Deathwalker class. Are you also annoyed at the lack of pips like Brett is? Let us know.
So that's all the classes, and that's the end of the road to Frosthaven. But wait, there's more. We've got crafting. So you're like, how do we get these? What are the cool things? We're going to show you part of the crafting deck, what kind of materials you can get, what kind of items you can make, and we're going to give you a little bit of insight into those fun monsters, including the Algox, which have a lot of similarities to the Inox, but all their stats are better.
All right, next Tuesday, we're going to be releasing our guide for the Spellweaver. If you like this video, hit subscribe and hit like for the Shadow Kitties.
Shadow tokens!